I got another opportunity to work for Lucasfilm up in San Francisco. And so once again, I was like super excited because Lucasfilm, ILM, like they're like the studio, like Pirates of the Caribbean, Transformers, like Avengers, you name it, they've done it. So I moved up to San Francisco and I actually got a chance to work on their one and only animated feature, which Rango. So I worked on Rango for almost 2.5 years. I left Lucasfilm and I decided to pursue teaching at a collegiate level. So I already had a master's degree, so that pretty much qualifies me to teach most places. So I called my old animation professor from my master's degree, and they had an opening for a visual effects professor at the Savannah College of Art and Design Hong Kong campus. And I was like, great, I'm already in Singapore, I'll just hop over. So I did that. So I was the professor of visual effects at Savannah College of Art and Design Hong Kong campus for the last 5 years. And unfortunately the campus closed this last June. So did some job hunting, and so now I've been picked up by a company called Shadow Factory. So they do digital marketing of all kinds, but they specialize in augmented reality and virtual reality, which was really cool because I'd never worked in augmented reality or virtual reality before. Also at that time, I became the department head of modeling for a online school called CG Spectrum. So that's where I'm at now. I taught at SCAD, or Savannah College of Art and Design, for long. I was a professor of visual effects there. So I taught the entire visual effects curriculum. So that's everything from, CG integration, camera tracking, digital makeup, explosions, creatures, the whole thing. And along with that, because of my background, I covered a few other classes in animation, so CG animation, interactive game design, because a lot of those things, a lot of the tools that are used across those disciplines. They all kind of use Maya, they all use Photoshop, they all use some sort of texturing application. And then I got a chance to do 2 what they called SCAD Pro projects that were actually specifically focused on digital fashion and digital cloth. One was with a company called Towel Apparel. That was and then another one was with a marketing team called PCW. So Towel Apparel we were tasked to make clothing in the computer that was, pseudo realistic, or as realistic as we can make it with the tools that we had. We got pretty close. So they were super happy with it, and that kind of branched this kind of idea of digital fashion and digital cloth and generating garments before they go to manufacture, and that whole deal. So yeah, that's what I did while I was at SCAD. Oh yeah, so this one I really enjoy. I love telling this story. It was when I was first working at Rhythm and Hues. So the first movie I worked on at Rhythm and Hues, like I said, was Golden Compass. The second movie I worked on at Rhythm and Hues was actually Alvin and the Chipmunks, the very first Alvin and the Chipmunks movie, where it was like CG chipmunks with like real live people. And there's the scene at the end where they've kind of like, the chipmunks have like kind of like sold out, and they're wearing like these silver track suits and they're like dancing around. So I was super lucky, once again, to get on the team that was simulating the track suits. And so I was very green. I barely knew what I was doing. I talked to my supervisor a lot, being like, how do I do this? How do I do that? And so how it works generally with most productions, like you do all your work during the day, you send it off to process at night, and then you come back the next day and you have dailies. So you come back in the morning, get your coffee, go to the viewing room, and it just has everything queued up so that your supervisor can look at your work and be like, okay, make this like that, make that like that, make this faster, slower, blah, blah, blah. So the way that the cloth worked is we have these things called tacks, right? And so what the tack is, it acts like a belt, like holds the pants onto the waist of the chipmunk. And in my folly, before I sent my simulation off that night, I forgot to turn it on. So we all sit down, they pull up my shot, and in front of my entire department, a chipmunk dances on screen, dances out of his pants, and then kicks them off screen in front of everybody. And I was just like, that's great. So from then on, I always remember to turn on the tax and check my renders before I send them to review. So lesson learned. Yeah, AR, any kind of new technology or anything new can become a buzzword to use to sell things. The two words that I think that would best kind of parallel this is like when food went organic and was like free trade, right? These are buzzwords. These are people to get people to like buy into it. Most companies that say that something is organic, it's not organic. You don't have to prove that it's organic, right? So if somebody says quote unquote AR or VR, right? Or even AI, like AI is the big buzzword, like AI this, AI that. It can be used as a way to be like, oh, it's automatically gonna be good because it's VR, virtual reality or augmented reality. Or it's automatically gonna be good because it's AI created. And once again, these just like the kind of like the digital competency thing, these things are not true. Like if your core artistic, kind of execution is poor, your AR is going to be poor. Your VR will be poor. If your AI is trained with poor data, your AI is going to be poor. I mean, we can see this in like the United States and Europe. Like law enforcement is starting to use a lot of AI facial recognition, but most of the AI facial recognition, that the machine is trained on, is Caucasian faces. So it's not good at picking out Latino faces, Asian faces, African American faces, and it can miscategorize those. So not only is misuse of this technology, irresponsible, it can also be dangerous. Like especially with augmented reality and virtual reality, you can give people migraines, you can make them dizzy, you can, in some older people, it's like bad VR can cause seizures. So there is a level of responsibility not to let these things just become buzzwords and selling point. You have to know how they work. We don't really know how virtual reality affects the human brain. We don't know why some people put on a VR helmet and immediately get sick. We don't know why some people put it on and they feel great. We don't know why some people put it on and they're like, I never want to leave this magical realm of VR. And some people are like, I can't wait to get out of this. We don't know, because we don't know, the human brain physiology that well. So if we need to keep them from becoming buzzwords, because they're very quickly becoming buzzwords because of the drop in, VR headsets and the access to augmented reality and artificial intelligence, learning algorithms. These things are becoming household accessible. It's not just for like computer scientists and these giant companies. They're being accessible to everyone. So you need to educate yourself about what they actually are. Just the one last thing about that would parallel this is like when movies started becoming stereoscopic or 3D. A lot of really terrible movies, they were like, oh, we'll just make it 3D and it'll be good. And it made it worse. Like it was making people nauseous, it was giving people headaches, because it wasn't built, that story wasn't made to be told from 3D from the onset. They just kind of like slapped it on the end and expected it to be good. I can see the same thing happening with augmented reality and virtual reality. So.